question for you is, if elected president, who would you choose and what criteria would you use to select federal and Supreme Court justices?
What a great question, because of course the next president of the United States may have as many as 4 openings on the Supreme Court. And we know that the Supreme Court has enormous power. The short answer is men and women like my dad, but let me explain to you why I say that. I learned conservatism at my father's knee. He was a law professor. And I adored my dad, and he would come home from work at night, and I would sit by his knees while he watched the news. And I would observe him yelling at Walter Cronkite. And I would ask him why he'd explain, and the next morning I would observe him yelling at the New York Times, and he would explain. And as I went on in my life, I learned that the principles that he taught me just worked better. He became a federal judge on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the most liberal court in the land. And he wrote dissenting opinion after dissenting opinion after dissenting opinion. And every time the Supreme Court would overturn the Ninth Circuit, virtually every time, they would refer to my father's dissenting opinion. Now, why do I tell you that? Because what I have learned watching my dad, and what I've also learned watching some of our current Supreme Court justices is, it is not enough to say, I am a conservative person of principle. You have to have the ability to withstand pressure. And a lot of people don't have that kind of courage and backbone. It is necessary to elect, to nominate people who will not only have a demonstrated track record of the right kinds of conservative principles and philosophy, but who also have a demonstrated track record of standing up against pressure. I watched my dad on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals get enormous pressure from everyone around him. And let's face it, these Supreme Court justices are sitting in Washington, D.C., and they are under enormous pressure at their dinner parties, their cocktail parties, when they read the newspapers. They have to be able to withstand the pressure. So, I'm not going to hand off the opportunity to vet someone to someone else. I'm going to spend a lot of time with whoever I might nominate and understand how they stand up to pressure, what their principles are, what their philosophies are, and whether or not they can take pressure and they have the courage to stand by their convictions, because that's what it takes, courage.
Crop TV.